Probably still won't go by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need like a NASA clock in here is what we need. A big T-minus clock, you know, the countdown. Heard the bells. I know it's not advancing, but maybe Nadine has her Bluetooth device. There she is. Okay.
Come on.
We almost couldn't start without
That's the
you.
one, and I was afraid to touch it anymore.
Take a red roll. Good evening. I'd like to call this Tuesday, May 2nd, 2017 meeting of Middletown City Council to order. If you please stand and join me in a moment of meditation and the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Strayer, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Bronston. Here. Mr. Bohannon.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Card.
Here.
Mayor Mulligan.
Here. All right, have a series of presentations. First off, I'd like to invite Mr. Les Landon down to receive the Law Day proclamation. But certainly for the work they do and the dedication they offer. So in honor of Law Day, which was yesterday, May 1st, I want to recognize the work of the lawyers here locally and throughout the country. Whereas Law Day is an occasion of public acknowledgement of our nation's and Ohio's heritage of justice, liberty, and equality under the law, the United States Congress has statutorily designated May 1 as the annual day for commemoration of Law Day. And whereas the American Bar Association has designated the 2017 Law Day theme to be the 14th Amendment, transforming American democracy, in recognition of the numerous contributions to American law and society and one of the most often cited constitutional enactments. And whereas the 14th Amendment, in the nearly century and a half that has elapsed since its ratification, has greatly expanded the constitutional protections available to all through its clauses guaranteeing due process and equal protection. And whereas the 14th Amendment has served the vehicle by which many of the protections of the Bill of Rights have been found to be enforceable against state and local government actions that infringe upon fundamental liberties. And whereas the 14th Amendment constitutionally defined national citizenship for the first time and guaranteed that privileges or immunities of the United States citizenship would not be denied to any individual citizen. And whereas the 14th Amendment has served as the basis and inspiration for landmark civil rights legislation and court decisions protecting and advancing the rights of Americans. And whereas promoting the public understanding of the roots of our freedom are an important component of the civic education of the citizens of the United States and of the state of Ohio. And now therefore, I, Lawrence Mulligan, Mayor of the City of Middletown, County of Butler Warren, State of Ohio, call upon the residents of our community to appreciate our legal rights and value our civic responsibilities and work together to sustain our national commitment to a democratic society under law and to hereby proclaim May 1, 2017 as Law Day in the City of Middletown. Congratulations, Les. Thanks for your work. You want to offer any special words from the Bar Association?
Well, I did prepare about a 45-minute lecture on the 14th Amendment, but we'll pass.
The proclamation covered a lot
Yeah,
of it.
it covered a lot of it. Thank you very much. Lawyers are often a somewhat beat-up-on breed. What they do for this country is terribly important on a day-to-day basis, and it's nice that every now and then we just take a second to step back and say, that's what happened. So that's good. That's good, and we appreciate it. Right, Dan?
Yes, Les.
Right, Doug?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Leanne Hood down to receive the proclamation recognizing our corrections officers here in Middletown and really across the nation. Thanks for joining us, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
It is certainly a privilege to recognize the work of our city employees, and certainly the Corrections Division is certainly an important division as well. So on behalf of council, I have this proclamation to recognize their work here and nationally. Whereas corrections officers have the difficult and often dangerous assignment of ensuring the custody, safety, and well-being of the inmates of our nation's prisons and jails. Their position is essential to the day-to-day operations of these institutions. Without them, it would be impossible to achieve the foremost institutional goals of security and control. And whereas the city of Middletown is privileged to have a group of men and women who are trained professionals and who serve on a daily basis, unarmed, in the city's municipal facilities, which house the most antisocial and dangerous individuals the society has to offer. These professionals, with little thought to their own personal safety, serve violently to provide humane conditions of confinement while ensuring security. And whereas corrections officers' duties have become increasingly complex and demanding, they are called upon to fill simultaneously custodial, supervisory, and counseling roles. The professionalism, dedication, and courage exhibited by these officers throughout the performance of these demanding and often conflicting roles deserve our utmost respect. And whereas the daily management of inmates requires special training and sound judgment and courage, these correctional officers and correctional officer supervisors provide essential services and exemplify the highest of professional standards by their commitment to the City of Middletown Municipal Jail. Now, therefore, I, Lawrence Mulligan, Mayor of the City of Middletown, Butler and Warren County, State of Ohio, deem it appropriate to honor the many contributions and accomplishments of these men and women who are a vital component of the field of corrections, and do hereby proclaim May 8th through the 14th, 2017 as National Corrections Officers Week. Thank you very much, Ms. Hood.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming down. Would you like to offer a few words about the work the corrections officers are doing?
Probably just a couple. Every year, being the senior lieutenant, Chief Muterspaw usually asks me where I would like to be assigned to during the upcoming year, and since 2015, I've been assigned to the jail. And he said, "Are you sure you don't want to take investigations or be the administrative lieutenant or go back to patrol?" And I said, "No, I'll stay where I'm at. You know, the jail is not without problems, but right now I probably have the best group of employees that we've ever had here. They're just so responsible and conscientious and committed to their jobs every single day. And I mean, I don't have to tell you the stuff that they put up with, but they put up with it, and they come to work every day, and just very committed group. So,
Very good. We'll keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
I don't see anyone from the post office here where we're going to recognize the letter carriers. But all right, with that, we'll just move on to the agenda. I've received no citizen comment cards this evening, so we can move to our housing workshop. Mr. Atkins, you want to team?
Yes, Your Honor. If we could get the lights back on behind us from the booth here.
Blue lights, there we go.
There we go. Your Honor, I'm going to ask council to take about 5 minutes, and there's a whole lot of information both behind you and in front of you. I'll tell you that Atrium Medical Center has asked if we could help display in the community the work they're doing with their 100th year anniversary, and we therefore have up in the city building lobby and also across the back of council chambers some of their event information from the 100th anniversary. So we encourage you to at some point to look at that if you haven't been there for some of the events. Tonight, though, we're talking about housing. Behind you are, I believe it's 18, might be 17 or 18 charts. We're going to start just by asking council to take about 5-10 minutes, honestly, as long as you need to. Just quickly take a look at what's being tracked, where things are. As usual, red is bad, yellow is cautionary, green is good. And once we've had a chance to kind of just get a glimpse and an understanding of what's behind you, I want to go into a presentation on housing and talk more in detail about what we're talking about.
All right,
So I'll ask you to take, again, as long as council needs, but 5-10 minutes. You tell me when you're ready.
Oh,
Yep.
letter carrier, okay. Maybe I'll do that while council's going around, so.
Keep moving.
They're coming down. As I mentioned, the letter carriers do some great work with the food drive, and we're glad you're here to receive this proclamation. So, whereas the National Association of Letter Carriers have designated the day of May 13th, 2017 as the 23rd annual Stamp Out Hunger Food Drive Day. And whereas the NACL Food Drive collected 45,164 pounds of food in Butler County in 2016 and nearly 1.3 million pounds of food since 1995, serving thousands of families who need this nourishing food through Shared Harvest Food Bank's network of food pantries. And whereas the AFL-CIO Shared Harvest Food Bank, Feeding America, and countless community volunteers will lend assistance to this charitable endeavor, with the United States Postal Service supporting this drive. Now therefore I, Lawrence Mulligan, Mayor of the City of Middletown, Counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio, do hereby proclaim Saturday, May 13th, as the National Association of Letter Carriers National Food Drive Day. And further, on behalf of all municipal officers and administration, do request that all citizens of our community support the efforts of this national annual drive by placing non-perishable food in their mailboxes on Saturday, May 13th, 2017, to help meet the needs of our neighbors here locally. Congratulations. Thanks for your great work. Would you like to share some information about the food drive?
Yeah, I just wanted to share the past year, or past few years actually, that the Warren County and Butler County have been #1 in the nation as far as getting food for this during this food drive on this one day. So we're trying to increase that this year. We increased volunteer numbers, so we're hoping that people just donate food, but we thank you for this. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming down today.
Thank you. Can't hear you. Yes, for the food.
Country or
For
region?
food, yeah, collection.
Country or region? #1,
You said Butler and Warren County were #1s.
Butler and Warren County. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, after. Yeah.
Mr. Atkins, as Mr. Bohannon's finishing up there, I was wondering, are these available in a electronic format or a
They are.
smaller flip book or something so we can study them in additional detail?
The answer is yes, and I need information systems to tell me how.
Okay.
But they are all electronic, they're saved at our intranet, and the question is, yeah, how do I have them, make them accessible to everyone?
Okay.
The answer is yes, but I don't know how to do it. We'll figure that out. As you can see, there's a staggering amount of data behind you. I mean, literally a lot to take in. It took months to gather it, plot it, figure it out, and there's a method to the madness. So as we start moving forward, I wanted to start, as I tried to figure out how to look at housing, I wanted to try to come up with a comparison that made sense. And so in most cases, we've used census data because that's gathered externally. It's not something that we made up or did. And so wanted to start looking at who we were in 2000. And I don't think I'm going to tell you here anything that's a surprise to you. But it's important to go over it so we see how we look in the future. When you look at our workforce, 16 years of older in the workforce, in 2000 rather, we had 62.4%. You can see we're just under Ohio, just under the United States. We're about very similar to what everybody else is. You look at our industries, and not surprisingly, manufacturing, education, and healthcare make up the largest jobs. No big deal or surprise there. Atrium Medical Center, the school district, MUM, AK Steel in our industrial base. Again, not a big surprise. It's what you would expect to see from Middletown. Poverty was at 9.2%. We were a little poorer than Ohio and the United States. Again, I don't think that was a huge surprise. We're in the neighborhood, but not quite as affluent as other parts of the country. We have a normal breakdown of our residents as far as age, spread out pretty good. We are a little less educated. 76.9% of our residents in 2000 had a high school graduation or better. 13% had a bachelor's degree or better. You can see we're slightly behind Ohio and the United States. Again, I don't think this is, we're predominantly a blue-collar town. This is not a huge surprise. Housing, vacant housing units, we were at 7.2%. Ohio was at 7.1%, the United States at 9%. Again, in the neighborhood of what everybody else is doing. We had a few less owners than Ohio and the United States. Again, I don't think that would be a huge surprise to anybody. We were at 60%, Ohio was at 69%. We had about 40% rentals. Again, if you've been here for a while, and even the 12 years I've worked here, none of this was a surprise to me. And along came the perfect storm over the last 15 years. We've had a huge number of things happen in this community that have impacted us. From 1999 to 2005, we had added 888 new Section 8 vouchers, leaving us with the highest concentration of subsidized housing in the state of Ohio. We have been working hard on reducing that by closing MPHA. I've not gotten a count in a while, but we were approaching 900 the last time I asked. It's gone down significantly, but it was something that impacted us over the last 15 years. AK, and again, this is years ago, but this is over the last 15 years, encountered labor difficulties leading to a lockout of the union. Several years ago, AK moved their headquarters about a decade ago. Recession, which is no surprise to anybody, massive foreclosures throughout Butler County. As of the 2010 census, we had 3,058 vacant homes in Middletown, representing 13% of our housing stock. Great Recession wiped out jobs. Not only did it take people into foreclosure, it greatly reduced employment. In 2010 census, we're at 11.1% unemployment. With the ramp up of Section 8 and the foreclosure, a number of families started to move their children out of the public school district and into private and charter schools. Some of that would have happened anyway. I mean, there are a number of people that enjoy having their kids in religious schools. Fenwick, nothing wrong with that. But now 11% of our school-age children do not attend the Middletown City School District. Heroin came back in a way that frankly hasn't been seen since the 1970s. We've talked about how bad it's been in Dayton and Cincinnati. We're right in between the two. We had 532 overdoses resulting in 74 deaths last year. So where are we now? Well, here's I hope I haven't showed you anything in 2000 that surprised you. And I think when I've looked at this before I did this work, I think most of us would say everybody took a hit during the recession. Everyone is probably worse off than they were pre-recession. We all lost, all the cities lost money from the local government fund, the inheritance tax. We all took a hit. We all got hurt in our housing about the same as everyone else. And basically, everybody took a step back. And the answer as we started looking at 2015 is that's simply not the case. We took several steps back. We're much more than the rest of Butler County, much more than Ohio. And as we start looking at some of these numbers, keep in mind where we're comparing now 2015 Middletown to the rest of Butler County. I'm including Hamilton in the rest of Butler County, and they are larger and very similar to us. So you can see the staggering differences that are coming in Middletown. Poverty, we are now up to 21% poverty from 9.2. And you say, yeah, but everybody went up. Yeah, but they went from 7 to 11. We went from 9 to 21%. We added 1,263 families in poverty. One of the bright spots in the data is that we are now better educated than we were in 2000. We have more high school graduates, and we have more of our residents with a bachelor's degree or higher. I would like to think the work we've done in Cincinnati State and recruiting people to MUM, and frankly, the recession, I think, drove people back to school to get training again, and we've seen an uptick in the education level of our residents. This is probably not a surprise either. We lost 800 construction jobs, almost 3,000 manufacturing jobs, 200 wholesale trade jobs, almost 600 education and health jobs, and replaced them predominantly with retail, entertainment, and recreation jobs. Again, that's not necessarily a Middletown thing, but it certainly has happened here, and we can document in detail what has happened to us over the last 15 years. This is probably the one that staggered me the most. We have lost 4,580 people under the age of 54, but we have lost 3,000 working adults, and that's huge for our workforce. We had, if you remember, about 60% of our adults are in the workforce. If you take that 3,100 times 59 or times 60%, that's 1,895 people that should have been in the workforce from 2000 that are now gone. If they each made $30,000 at 1.75%, we would have an additional $994,000 in income tax every year from the people that have left this community in the last 15 years, from the working class people that have left this community. That's a huge number. Our average household income is $48,049. Butler County's average income, including Hamilton, is $74,000. If you were to change the number of households and bump them up to the Butler County average, you would have $9 million extra dollars a year in income tax. And I can lay that out for you real quick. That's 10 firemen, 20 police officers, and $6 million in additional paving we could do every year if we looked like the rest of Butler County. These are the things that have happened to us. Housing drives so many things that go on in our city. Where we have poor quality and low value housing, it tends to lock in the lower income, lower educated residents, limits our workforce, and it also limits our income tax base. So where are we in housing in 2015? Well, about 78% of our housing is now under $150,000. And you can see that results in the fact that our median dollar income is less. We simply have cheaper housing than the rest of Butler County and the rest of Ohio. 79% of our housing is built prior to 1980. Again, you're going to find that the rest of Butler County has much newer housing to offer than we do in most cases. Vacancy went up to 14%. Butler County's at 9.6, Ohio's at 10.8. We have much more vacant housing than the rest of the county and the rest of Ohio. Our ownership has dropped to 52.7%. The rest of Butler County is at 27.7% rentals. We are at 47.3% rentals. We have lost almost 2,500 owners and added just under 800 rentals over the last 15 years. And just under 50% of our housing is 2-bedroom or less, when most of our families are looking for 3- and 4-bedroom housing. What this means, and the numbers couldn't be more clear, we are no longer competitive in the Southwest Ohio residential real estate market. This came out in 2015 when we were talking about our effective tax rate for property taxes. This is what's happened to Middletown since 2011 to 2015. You can see agriculture, industrial, and others are up. Commercial's effectively flat. Our residential property lost $58 million over a 4-year period. And it's simply because we are no longer competitive with the housing that we are offering in Middletown. We as a government artificially created a significant portion of our existing problem. This is not an organic problem. This is not something that it just happened. What happened is what happened to Butler County in Ohio, where they went from here to here. We went from here to here. This is something that we created. We added significant subsidized housing. We then imported poverty to fill those new vouchers. Our residents had mortgages that they couldn't pay, and they went into foreclosure. We converted an awful lot of our older, smaller housing to rental. We didn't maintain our infrastructure, public safety, and quality of life, and in some cases, landlords have not screened properly for tenants for drugs and criminal activity. We're not the only ones that are seeing this and recognizing it. Moody's came in November of 2016 and looked at our bond rating. And what they said is, we're going to leave you as you are. However, we are putting a negative outlook upon the city of Middletown, which means the next time, if we have not made progress on these areas, they are going to lower our bond rating. They said factors that could lead to removal of the negative outlook would be sustained growth in property tax or income tax base, improvement in resident wealth. Factors that could continue to lead to a downgrade would be continued deterioration of the tax base and the demographic profile. Question now becomes, if we artificially created this, are we going to be willing to artificially uncreate it? Because that's what it's going to take. This is not something that organically is going to change on its own. We're going to have to take action to fix this damage. One of those critical components back to prosperity for us is quality housing. This is something Danver put together for us, and I've talked about it a little bit, but I'll go over it for just a couple minutes here. When all of us go out in the world, we generally go in about the same housing cycle. We leave our parents' house and we get our first crappy apartment. We're out, we use milk crates for our end tables, and we've all done that once. We start getting involved in our career and we move up to hopefully a nicer apartment. We either get more affluent or we get married and we buy our first home. We have kids, our career advances, we get whatever that move up home is, whether it's $125,000 or it's $1 million. We go through this about same cycle. And then as the empty nest comes in and we get older, we eventually downsize into some kind of a senior housing. The problem that we have in Middletown, as I showed you, is 78% of our housing is 2-bedroom or less, and it's under $150,000. So what happens is, if you want that first apartment, you're fine. If you want that second apartment, you can go to Trinity. Now you can go to the Newtown Boulevard. You can go out by the highway. You can get that decent second apartment. We have astonishing first housing in Middletown. You can get a beautiful house for $80,000 to $125,000. And in many cases, it's going to have beautiful woodwork in it. It's going to have all kinds of cool stuff that if you like that kind of artsy, antique stuff, wow. And then the minute that you start having kids and your career gets better and you're starting to make money and everything's coming together for you, we make you move out of Middletown because we don't have the next phase of housing. We don't have that mid-range of housing in the volume that we have. And so when 70% of your housing is at opening level, as those people move up, only 15% of our housing is at next level. Everybody else has to leave the community, and so they start going to Mason, they start going to Lakota, they start going to Springboro, right as we would like to have their income tax. That's a problem. So the idea, theoretically, would be that we would, over time, balance our housing stock. And what that means is, we hope that you'll spend your entire life here, that you'll leave your parents, you'll get that first apartment, you'll get that second apartment, you'll move up, you'll get that best house, you'll move down into senior housing, And every time you want to do that, just say, I love living in Middletown, and there's good quality housing that I'd like to live in for whatever my next phase is. We don't have that now, but that's what we should be trying to get to. So the idea would be, and this is just for example, I don't want to freak people out. I'm not proposing anything I'm about to show you, but I am trying to get people to start talking about the scope of the problem and how much it would take to balance our housing stock. And so if we kept the same number of residential structures, which is somewhere around 29,000, apartments, houses, everything, and we redistributed them so that we look just like Butler County, everything else in Butler County, what would we have to do to our housing stock? And the answer is, if you looked at the number of bedrooms, we would have to demolish 4,300 two-bedroom and less houses and replace them with 3, 4, and 5-bedroom houses to balance what the rest of Butler County looks like. Again, I'm not suggesting we do that, but you start to see how far out of whack we are with our housing. You look at price range, we would have to destroy 3,788 homes under 150,000 and replace them with an equal number of homes between $150,000 and $499,000. We'd have to remove 3,878 rental properties to get down to the 27.7% rentals that the rest of Butler County has. Again, I'm not suggesting this is what we do, but I am suggesting that we need to start looking at what we need to do with our housing to start thinking about how to fix this. So where do we start? Danter now has given us back our housing study. It's about 180 some pages long. It's 4 or 5 pages of summary and 175 pages of supporting documentation. We can make it available for you. I can give you the summary, or I can give you all of it, as much of it as you want to read. I've read it all 2 or 3 times now. But their idea is, they say right now, even with problems with our schools, even with other things going on in the city, there's a demand right now that they believe would be filled of 127 single-family homes, 33 condominiums, and about 600 brand-new market rate multifamily units that we could fill per year for the next 5 years if we had places to build them and could get them occupied. Again, we're not going to build 160 new homes, or 160 in the next 5 years. We'll build what we can, we'll work on it. But if you did, and you took that 5-year value, and I took the bottom, so where it says 60, I've times that times 150, that gives you $9 million. Over 5 years, that'd be $45 million in new housing. If you see what I'm saying, if you did what they said we should do, we would add $180 million in new value, residential value, to the city of Middletown over 5 years. Again, we're not going to be able to do that, but you start to see the things that would help us start moving our housing in the right way. We've talked about the effective property tax rate. One of the 3 areas you can do, you can reduce your millage, you can renovate significantly the housing that you have. The third one was you add new housing that spreads that property tax bill for the school out to more people. And so again, effectively everybody's rate goes down. This is the style of the things we should be looking at when we're talking about how to do that. Demolition. We've done spot demolition for several years. We've removed a lot of blight. A lot of people don't like it. I get it, but I will stand by the fact that those houses were beyond care in most cases. They were not. There was no commercially viable reason to put them back together again. You're talking about putting $30,000 in a $50,000 house to make it viable. It's better to start over and think about what we do. But we did create 300 vacant lots. We did create problems in our neighborhoods. So it's time to start thinking about demolition differently. We need to continue to remove vacant and functionally obsolete housing consistent with rebalancing the housing stock. So how would you choose what we need to demolish? Well, I can tell you that most of our serious crimes are occurring in rental property. That's probably not a surprise to you, but a lot of our murders, assaults, robberies, a lot of that, if it's being done in residences at all, is being done in rental property. This is all from Middletown Municipal Court, from the Civil Division. I asked them for a detailed report of 2016 evictions, Some staggering information. You have one landlord in this community that had 213 evictions in Middletown in 1 year. When you look at the top 10 landlords, they had 700 evictions between them, representing 39% of the evictions that took place. And I agree, some of these places have large 200-unit things. I get that. But there's a staggering amount of evictions here. And then this was the other side of it. From the tenant side, you have one tenant in Middletown that was evicted 8 times in the city of Middletown, in Middletown Municipal Court in 1 year. You have 2 that were evicted 6 times, 24 times, 130 twice, which means you got people that just aren't doing their job screening for the tenants. Because they're getting evicted and they're going, the guy who did 5 times, that means every 2 or 3 months they're going to a new place, they're stiffing a landlord, they're getting evicted, they're going right down the street, stiffing another landlord. Not good. Not good for our housing, not good for our schools. There's nothing good about what's on this slide. Demolition, we've talked about the fact that, in a theoretical world, you demolish rental property, smaller properties, under $100,000 properties. So as you start to look in there, you go, well, now they're all starting to line up. We have rentals that are under $100,000 that are 1 or 2 bedrooms. Okay, we should think about that as we go around. Look around your city. This is off the MLS from a week or so ago. I understand 1 or 2 of these has actually sold since I put this slide together. But you have houses that are basically under $10,000. I would tell you that, in my opinion, you shouldn't have a single-family residence under, if it was up to me, 40 or so thousand, but certainly not 25,000. They reach a point when they're that low of value, you need to remove them and get them out of your housing stock. These are for sale, or at least were for sale as of a week or 2 ago. And then look around the room. I gave you all this data, and again, I don't expect you to look at it and understand it deeply. But when we talk about what's going on in a neighborhood, I can now tell you by census tract in incredible detail what's going on. How much of the housing is under 100,000? How many people are working there? What's the poverty rate? How many evictions were there? How many heroin addicts live there? What's the condition of their water and sewer pipe and their streets? I can go on all these different things and say, I now know exactly what's going on in this census tract. And how do we factor that into our housing discussions? Is this a census tract where the housing is solid and we need to reoccupy it? Or is this housing that's simply everything bad's happening? The infrastructure's bad, high crime, high everything bad going on, and we need to figure out how we're going to get rid of it. We either need to fix it or we need to destroy it. One of the two. And that's a discussion for another day. Just as an example, and again, these are all theoretical, I'm not suggesting anything, but if you demolish 300 houses at $75,000 a house, and I promise you I'm not demolishing $75,000 houses, and you built in the same way, I'm not going to demolish 300 houses, I'm also not going to build that, but you can see if you watch what you're doing and you're adding housing over here and destroying less housing over here, you will add to the value of the community, and again, you'll work on that effective property tax rate. Again, this is the beginning of a discussion. This is not a proposal for council or anybody else. Part of it is reducing vacancy. I told you our vacancy is up to 14.3%. Butler County's at 9.6%. If you just wanted to be like Butler County, we'd have to reoccupy 552 homes. Looking at all this, we could probably figure out which neighborhoods we probably want to do that in, so that those you look at different areas. Should we do that? How do we get those going? The answer is there's a whole lot of tools out there for reducing vacancies. There's programs that we've never really looked at. There's programs like our down payment assistance that we've been doing for years. There are things that we could do if we knew where we wanted to do it and why we were doing it at that place and why we wanted that house reoccupied. And so again, this is the discussion that we start having is what are we doing, where are we doing it, why are we doing it, how would we do it? Our vacant lots, there are all kinds of things that places around the state of Ohio are doing with vacant lots, all the way from infill construction. If we have a neighborhood that's in good shape, but we knocked 8 houses out of it, and we know that we're going to keep that neighborhood, maybe part of the answer is to rebuild 8 similar houses in that neighborhood, finish it out, clean it up, get everybody back in code compliance, put that neighborhood back into play. Other places, we may want to leave a green space. We may want to make a pocket park, a community garden. I've seen basketball courts. I've seen off-street parking where, rather than keep them on the street, you've got a little lot there with 12 spaces, and anybody on that street can pull through the lobby or the alley and park there off-street and put some lighting on it. There's all kinds of things. Public art. There's all kinds of things that can be done. Again, you go into those neighborhoods and you say, this is what I see, this is what I think we should do. And then part of it is, neighborhood, what do you want us to do? I have 2 vacant lots here. What do you want us to do? You live on the street. Do you want some public art? Do you want a pocket park? Do you want a basketball? What do you want? And again, if it's within a realm of things that council has said, Doug, any of these 7 things are fine in a vacant lot, I can go into those neighborhoods and say, I'm allowed to do any of these 7. What would be good for you? And again, let's work with the people that are our residents. Code enforcement, we'll have group work camps. I think they're back again this year, if I remember right, in Middletown. We have a lot of things that we do already, but again, if we knew we were concentrating on a certain neighborhood for certain types of things, we would concentrate code enforcement in that area and work on getting every house back compliant with all of our property maintenance codes. You see, I've gathered an incredible amount of data around the room. There are a large number of tools being successfully used in other parts of Ohio and around the country that Middletown has really never considered to deal with this issue. It's simply not blazing new trails. There are areas, especially up in northern Ohio, that are doing some really cool things with housing. The idea would be to grab some of those, bring them down here and evaluate which ones might work in Middletown, where would they work, and why would we use them here. So my questions for City Council are pretty straightforward. Number one, have I presented this in a way that you at least understand my concerns and why we have a problem in this community? And if the answer to that is yes, you see the data, you see the strength of the numbers behind it. Again, I've always, when I was in community revitalization, when I raised this back in 2008 and 2009 with Judy, and some of the questions were, Doug, we can't, you're talking about poor people, minorities, you just simply can't have this conversation. And we simply have to have this conversation. We can talk about the compassionate ways we're going to do things. There's 14% vacancy. If a lot of those houses don't need to be reoccupied, that's low-hanging fruit. I don't have to hurt anybody. I don't have to do anything. There's a lot of discussion that would be had before we would go out and do anything. My guess is it would take a year to 2 years to get this put back together in a way that the community could move forward on. But we would like to start developing a long-term housing policy for the city consistent with the numbers you're seeing here and the things that you're seeing. It's going to be long. It's going to be hard. Part of it's going to be probably demolition. And I'm going to tell you, I think, and again, I'm pulling numbers out of the air because I've not looked at this enough to tell you, but things like we should clear 3, 5, 7 square blocks of housing. This housing, based on the crime and everything that's going on, we should just destroy this. It's 80 to 100 years old. It's not in good condition. It's high crime. There's no reason to put it back together. Rather than leave holes in neighborhoods, we should look at wiping out whole blocks. Where? I have no idea. So don't get freaked out because we haven't talked about it yet. But that's probably going to be part of the discussion. You're going to hear words a year or two from now like eminent domain, which are going to freak people out. But again, I hope that by the time we've gone through this, and then we've gone out in the community, and then we've developed a policy, and then we get to the other end of this, that when we say, yeah, we're going to do some crazy things over the next 10 years, that people go, I don't like everything you're saying, but I understand why we have to do it. And that's what I'm trying to get to. If council is comfortable, my sole goal for the next 3 to 6 months is to give this exact same presentation throughout the community. I want to go to Rotary. We've got the Landlord Association coming in a week or so. Go down to the Second Ward Community Council. Go to the Ministerial Alliance. Go, in the same way Rodney's done coffee with a cop, we may have something at Java Johnny's or Triple Moon or at one of the schools. frankly, wherever we need to go, where people need to hear this information. And my sole goal is to get the community to say, I don't know where you're heading, and I'm not sure I trust you, but I hear what you're saying and I get it. If I can get that far in this round, then I can come back and have just an intelligent conversation about, now, if you understand why we have to take action, here's what I would do to take action. And then we can start the second round, which is, here's what I think we should do. What do you hate about it? What do you like about it? What do we need to tweak? And frankly, this worked great with the landlords. When we came in and said, hey, we're going to do this, and they said, no, there's smarter ways to do it. And we sat down and we worked out smarter ways to do several things where now the landlords and us work pretty well together. I mean, we sometimes disagree, but it's now an intelligent, respectful disagreement, and it's a good conversation, and it's about the issue. It's not about trust, and it's not about those types of things. That's what I need to build with the community if we're going to move something like this forward. And so my only goal tonight is, do you see what I see? And if you do, are you okay with me starting this, which means going out in the community and trying to get an understanding of the community as to why we need to take action over the next 10 years to start moving us in a better direction. And I'm doing it
Okay,
with this.
thank you. Any initial comments from council from Mr. Atkins' presentation?
I'd like to thank you for all the time and effort you've put forth. It's all very enlightening, and I think that you need to move forward with what your plans are. The sooner the better. The city needs to do something about the issue.
We're doing so well with economic development. We're doing so well with so many other areas in the community, but, you know, this is one of those that's going to drag us down. This is going to limit our ability to attract quality families and a workforce to handle these new jobs we're bringing. And I've got one other chart that I couldn't have room for, but we've talked about our school district. When you look around here, and I don't know, this is the Crawford area, which is probably not a surprise to everyone. When you look around these charts, Crawford is red in almost every one of these charts, that neighborhood. That's the second highest concentration of Middletown City School District kids are living in that census tract, which means they're exposed to the highest level of poverty, the worst infrastructure, the highest crime, and we wonder why our schools struggle. And so, again, my hope is to go out in the community and have this same conversation, frankly, as many times as I need to until people tell me they don't want to talk to me anymore. And once they get to that point, then come back and say, okay, here's how I would fix it. I have found it's easier to come and say, here's what I think we should do, and start tearing it apart than to say, what do you think we should do? Because the answer is, I've got all this data, and the people we're going to be talking to don't. And so it's easier to say, here's what I think we should do in detail, the things I like, the programs I like, where I like them, why I like them, and then start horse trading around with, no, this is, you know, important to us, we don't want you to touch that. Okay, well, maybe we take number 2 off the table, but we keep the other 6 things on. But again, go back and talk to the landlords, talk to the minority community, talk to the Hispanic community, talk to the Second Ward, and say, this is impacting you. You know, yes, you're poor, but you're also now a victim of high crime, poor infrastructure, and all these other things that go with that. And we need to figure out as collectively how we're going to fix that. And you have to help. And if you don't want to help and you don't want to be a part of it, then please don't complain later, because we gave you a chance to get in the game. So with your permission, I will go ahead and go out in the community and invite a whipping probably.
Any
Well, I
other
think it's-
thoughts? Or
Yeah, it's good to be proactive. Communication is the key to everything,
It is.
and leaders should communicate well. And I think it's great to have something visual to show people. When you talk and you hear and listen, you don't comprehend as well. And I think the legends are clear, the colors there, the charts are good. I think it's great information, and it really hits us in the forefront of where we are.
When I was hoping to let the data drive the discussion. You know, it's not what Doug thinks. This is us. This is us right now. And this is not something that, again, organically kind of just happened. And it's not going to organically unhappen. We're going to have to decide as a community how we're going to fix this, so.
I agree. I think you have to take it out to the people. I think we all know we were in a bad situation, but when you lay it out in front of us, it's stunning. But I think getting community support is going to be critical, so I think you're on the right track.
I agree. That's what I said, take as long as it takes.
And being the only one on council that has rental property, and being the chairman of the Landlord Association, I agree with your stance. I've always said, and I've told our members, that our city is too heavily rental. And the problem is just that. We have landlords that, just like you said, do not screen their tenants well enough to get rid of them. And I'm an advocate we need to clean the pool up. So somehow we need to come together. You've given us the opportunity to use select.com. My wife and I use it on every tenant that we want to put in our rental properties. We don't put signs in the front of the rental properties anymore. We don't like to do it. So we do everything through the internet and using the tools that you've given us. And I wish we could get more landlords to do it. But the names that you had on here, none of them are involved with the landlords.
Right.
And most of them are big housing authorities. And so their bottom line is get them in and let's get them rented. It doesn't matter who they are or what they are. We'll deal with the evictions if we have to. It's just part of doing business.
Right.
Where a small one like myself, with only 20 properties, I have to screen them. I can't afford to be constantly in eviction court moving people through my houses. So I'm 100% behind what you're doing.
I appreciate council's support, and I'll go out and
Yeah, I commend you for your work. I think it's telling. I think it has been a long time, certainly in development. We didn't get here overnight, but we can certainly work on it. You know, I'd encourage you, again, I like the idea of the 10-year plan. I think it's good to lay that out, but I'd also, to the extent we can, look for some low-hanging fruit, some early opportunities to target things to show progress, because, you know, we can't take 10 years to get out of this either.
Right.
So I think anything we do to prioritize certain areas for it. And similar to Crawford, I had a similar thought that I made as you were going through that. I was wondering if there were weightings provided each of these census tracts by, you know, classification category that we had to help us pinpoint some of the key areas so that we could maybe get a target area to start on and really begin to move forward. So,
might have already done that.
well, good. Okay, that's we're thinking along the same lines. And then last, I would say that getting a copy of the study, I'd be interested in the full copy. You know, just you know, if you get that electronically to us.
We have a copy of the PowerPoint hard copy. We'll send electronic tomorrow, and if Nadine can figure out how to get the maps.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. But, I mean,
It may take a day or so.
I won't
We'll
dig into
figure
it
out
tomorrow or
how to get
Friday,
them
but
to you.
maybe you know, over the course of a few days, it'll give us the information we need to share this. And again, I think getting the message out there is certainly important. So,
Like I said, even if it's a cuss and discuss type of thing, it's time to have those hard questions and hard answers.
yeah. Okay. All right. Any other
Move
questions
on.
from council? Okay. No, I think we move on to your city manager reports.
Yes, Your Honor. Wanted to give you, I told you we would be looking carefully at our healthcare costs. Now that the first quarter is done, we've had a chance to get all of our data in, and wanted to give you an update. Just a review of 2013 to 2016. As you're quite aware, we've had increasing health costs in the neighborhood of $750,000 to $1 million each of the last 3 years. We are now have the first quarter of 2017 in, and it's honestly mixed numbers. If you remember right, we made changes to our healthcare plan February 1st, which means we were paying in January, February, and probably part of March claims from the old plan, and so we're just now starting to get into the new plan. However, in the first quarter, if you look down, you can see that dental and prescription are down. Most of the others are flat. And again, medical claims were up $442,000 over the prior year. Again, we're starting to see some help in that area. If you project that out, and this was literally a take the first 3 months, divide by, times 4. If things went on exactly as they are right now, and we won't let them, we'd be down $746,000 we'd be coming to you for another loan at the end of the year. Obviously, that can't happen, but we wanted to let you know again, and I've had an all-employee meeting last week and went over this and told them exactly where we are and exactly the problems that we have. If you remember right, we were at a $2 million loan from the general fund. We have de-appropriated $453,000 back earlier this year. We have done what we have said we were going to do. We are leaving positions open for as long as we can without affecting the operation when they turn over, so that we are gaining 1, 2, 3 months of payroll. When we get to the end of June, we'll recalculate again the payroll we've saved and try to, again, give you some more money back against that loan. I told the staff when I had the all-employee meeting last week, if I had to take that $750,000 and distribute it by the number of employees in each division, these are the changes I would have to take out of the budget to pay that off. I wanted them to understand that these are big numbers that we have to get our hands on. Again, they're very aware, both the healthcare committee and the employees in general. But here's the thing, although costs are up March and April, we actually showed reductions in spending from 2016, which means theoretically our changes in the healthcare that took effect February 1st are starting to show some positive trends. March and April were both down. That being said, of course, the first quarter sucked, basically. Healthcare committee and staff are working to develop a 5-year plan that both repays the loan in full and also builds us to full reserves again. Given the increase in our flux in our costs, they're trying to build a program again, like I said, to get us back so that we have that reserve in place. If we have a bad year, it eats into the reserve instead of eating into the general fund. We will make whatever changes are required to keep us at least a 15% general fund balance and make sure the healthcare fund doesn't go negative. I mean, whatever I have to do, we'll make those changes. Our hope is that this is starting to trend in the right direction. Damaging first quarter, positive March and April claims. I told staff, and I'll tell you the same thing. I think by June, we will know whether we are heading out of this or whether we are bobbling along a little up and a little down. March and April were better. If May and June get better and better and better, and we're trending in the right direction, then the changes in June will be much less. If we get to June and things are just kind of bobbling and not going down a lot, then I have to make some pretty substantial changes mid-year. Whether that's increasing our premiums, cutting our coverage, laying off employees. I mean, it really depends on how bad the problem is and what tools I've got in the toolbox to work on it. But we will have you where you need to be at the end of the year. The healthcare fund will stay in a positive, and you will stay at least a 15% general fund balance by the end of 17. So we are dealing with it. Mixed information right now, but we should know by the end of June whether we've on the way to solving this problem or not.
Where are we with the large contested claim? Has that been resolved?
I did ask Jake to come tonight just because I figured he had more information than I do and he could answer some of those questions. Thank you.
So when Jim Dustin from NFP came, I guess that was in January.
Months ago, yeah.
Yeah. He talked about the large claimant. We use Voya, which is our stop loss vendor. So when that large claimant was in the system and they figured out all of the issues with the stop loss in the contract with Anthem, they went back and did an audit and just so happened to find that they had paid us too much in 2015 and 16. Didn't take all of the repay back, but did take a significant amount. So we received about $167,000 back, which is included in the numbers that you just saw for the first quarter. As Doug mentioned, April was much better. I think it's the first positive cash flow month we've had in over a year. So that's encouraging. Hopefully, like he said, things are heading in the right direction. We did have a meeting last week. We do have a big part of the medical you saw, the large increase in medical 17 to 16. It's 2 large claimants this year. Those have already hit the stop loss peak. So what that means for us is the city will no longer be paying claims on them. So anything they get, we'll have to pay it, then we'll get reimbursed by Voya on those. So that's also encouraging, hoping that with those 2, no longer the city paying those claims, it'll help us get back in the right direction.
There was a $400,000 thing we were talking about, a claim.
Yeah, so
that's
that's
what-
the 167,000
Oh, the
that we ended up
167, okay.
getting, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Wait, I don't understand. We had a $400,000 claim, and you talked about an audit.
Yep,
2009.
and not an audit we did, an audit that Voya, the stop-loss company did. So what they did, they went back and looked, and they said they had overpaid us in 2015 and 16 stop-loss reimbursements. So that overpayment, rather than reimbursing us $400 and then making us pay back 100, whatever that would be, 140,000, 240,000, they just reimbursed us the difference. 400,000 less the overpayment.
200 and some thousand, and we received that.
Correct, in 15 and 16 throughout both of those years, overpayment.
Sorry, I'm still not getting this. We had a $400,000 claim.
So the way it works is you have a large claimant. They hit our stop loss number is 125,000. That's our top amount that the city will pay on any of our employees, $125,000 per year. So in 2015 and 2016, we received hundreds of thousands of dollars in stop loss reimbursements, meaning we had several employees hit that top out. We still have to pay the claim when it occurs, and then we get reimbursed. So in 15 and 16, we received, like I said, hundreds of thousands. I don't have those numbers in front of me. The $400,000 claim that they spoke about last year, which was from 2016, so they said, hey, we have this large claim. We should be getting $400,000 back because we were paying it and not getting reimbursed due to a contract thing with Anthem that Jim Dustin had talked about. So when Voya, the stop-loss vendor, went back in and was looking at all of their data, calculating the $400,000 stop-loss, they found that they overpaid us on different claims, not related to that claim. They had overpaid us, over-reimbursed us, in other words. What would that be? $240,000 throughout 15 and 16. So instead of getting a $400,000 check back, we got $160,000 back. Yeah.
And we concur with the results of the audit?
Yeah, myself and Law looked at it. I mean, it all looks legitimate, it all looks correct. Or NFP now, I continue to say EBI, but they've changed names to NFP. They looked at it as well. They looked at it before they even presented it to myself and Law. So.
All right, I understand that, and I appreciate the explanation. The first quarter, though, is disturbing, to say the least. I mean, it looks like we had bad years in 15, 16, and we're back at it in 17. We're having another bad year. And I understand we can't control problems some of our employees have, but is there any explanation, or is this just random, someone having an illness of some kind that costs us this kind of money?
Yeah, it's just large claimants, things like cancer, premature babies, extended hospital stays, things of that nature.
And again, remember the first quarter, we paid mostly on the old systems claims that we were cleaning up, because we started February 1st with the new, which means we were paying December and January claims into February and March.
And then in February and March alone, 2 employees, we've already paid the max amount of claims for those. So we will not be, like I said, we pay the claim, but then we get reimbursed. So they will not negatively impact us the remainder of this year.
But they did in the first.
But they did in February and March, which means we will get money back on anything.
So the annualization you present is really a little skewed anyway, because it has those 2 large claimants in there that
That's
use the forecast for that.
Yeah, they won't. As I said, it's a damaging first quarter, and March and April showed some promise, but we simply don't have enough data. You know what I know. You've got the data on the claims, you've got the data on the fact that March and April were better. We know about the 2 stop loss. It's just going to take a couple more months to see whether we're trending in the right direction or we're bobbing. Are we going to hit another big claimant or 2? Are we going to go back up again? And the answer is March and April, or April, May, and June will tell us that. And I just don't.
Are we finding that most of our claims are on employees themselves or on spouses and family members?
It's skewed year to year. The two large claimants this year are both employees, but you can look at previous years. Some years it's children, some years it's spouses. It just,
We do have a breakdown, we do get that.
Yeah.
Any other questions from council? Okay. Thank you for the update. So,
Well, it's, like I said, mixed news, and I just don't know. All I can tell you is it'll be solved by December, one way or the other. But either it'll trend the right way and we'll be getting better, or it won't, and we'll make it get better. So, one way or another, it'll get fixed. Studio at the Theater, we have received a response to the RFP for the Studio Theater. The concept is a Bogart's J.D. Legends music venue type place with pub, movie, music, and entertainment. We are working with the developer to gather details and explore the concept. We have discussed, because Larry Tuttle's been out there several times and has concerns about the structural integrity of part of the building, that we agree that it's probably the next step for us is to spend about $2,500 and have a structural engineer evaluate the building to make sure, or if it's not viable, then we just need to demolish it. If it is, then the developer can look at it and say, I can invest my money here because I know that the building's still solid. We're gonna probably spend that money just to make sure that we know, everybody knows what's going on. They're going to need some kind of an economic development incentives from us. We're still talking, again, until we figure out what it's gonna look like and what the condition of the building. I don't have anything for you other than we're probably gonna be asked to be involved. If the building is viable and the concept is acceptable, we would then come back to council later for details in the discussion. I just wanted to make sure that you were comfortable with that style of an RFP response. Again, I don't have a lot of data because first step is to see if the building even viable to do this, but is the concept okay? And I think we need to, I would like to spend the $2,500 or whatever it is out of city money to determine the viability of the building, because like I said, if it's not viable, we need to quit messing around, just work on knocking it down. Is that okay with everybody? And Butler Metro Parks River Center. I sent out a couple emails. The last one was today. I don't know if you got a chance to see it. John Granville's been talking back and forth with the city on a couple different times now about the River Center. They are finding some funding gaps from what they originally wanted to do versus what they now have on the table. It was 1.5 million. It's down to 1.3 million. They were looking for either a nonprofit partner, which we said we would not support. And the second thing is, they asked if we wanted to get involved, and I said, well, I can talk to council about that. The email we got today was that they would probably like to recommend doing it in phases, that they'd go ahead and do the 1.3 smaller version and build it in a way that it could be added on to later if either us or somebody else wanted to get involved, or one of our employers wanted to get naming rights and have a meeting room or something named in their honor. Just looking for input from council on if I need to do anything. Like I said, the last email we got this afternoon is they would go ahead and build the smaller as a phase one, and we could come back and talk about it later. I gave council a couple options, and they got some of them up there on the board. We do have some money in the golf fund. We've got some little pockets here and there that if we wanted to do something, I could explore something else, but I just really wanted to get a feel from council whether or not we wanted to do anything more than let them build the phase one and help them move forward on that.
any thoughts from council on future
I think
direction?
you're on the right track with the potential naming rights, and if for some reason that didn't come through, I think we just need to let them go with the smaller building, especially given what we just discussed a few minutes ago.
I am very much opposed to anything down there that doesn't meet the current zoning. Not interested in hearing about any potential zoning changes or variances. And I'm not interested in this city spending one dime down there. I'm sorry. This group, we know the history with Weatherwax. We know how much money they put in that gentleman's pocket when they were uninterested in, when we brought the project to them. And frankly, their director, as far as I'm concerned, is a problem for me. I mean, he extorted a huge amount of money in salary and other increases from that group, and this city should not spend one dime on this.
That's the input I was looking for. I will let them know that we're gonna stay on the sidelines, and let them move forward, and I will, of course, help them
Nice river
build
center
whatever it
there.
is they're going to build, but we'll stay on the sidelines and let that move forward. That's all I have. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Atkins? All right, with that, Mr. Eric, can we move to our consent agenda?
Yes, sir. Matters listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote of consent. There will be no separate discussion on these items. Discussion is desired, then that item will be removed and considered separately. First item is to approve the city council minutes of April 18th, 2017, to receive and file board and commission minutes from the Board of Health of March 14th, 2017, and to receive and file oaths of office from Joe Collins, Amanda Gaspara, and Bianca Griffin.
All right, do we have a motion for the approval of the issue and actions as listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Eric, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Bronston?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Picard?
Yes.
And Mayor Mulligan?
Yes. All right, that brings us to our council comments. Mr. Picard?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to take a moment to express my condolences to the Armbruster family, the loss of Tracy, someone who most everyone in this community knew, who was just an outstanding person, part of a truly remarkable family, and their loss will be suffered by all. And I offer my prayers and condolences to them.
Mr. Bohannon?
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing tonight.
Okay. Mr. Moon?
I share what Mr. Picard said about Tracy Armbruster. They were family. She's family friend. The Armbrusters are friends, and I'm very sorry for their loss. Wanted to congratulate Vice Mayor Broston on a well-done NAACP meeting earlier this week, and congratulate our two chiefs on receiving the awards that night. I know we just had a city shred day a couple weeks ago. However, I did want to mention that LCMB, Lebanon Citizens National Bank, is also having a shred day on June 3rd, so if you happen to miss it, they will be having one at their location on Marie Drive. I also wanted to mention Special Olympics is tomorrow morning. I believe it's down at Barnett Stadium. Does that sound right?
Barnett's,
At 9:30. So if you have some free time, please come down, cheer those kids on. A congratulations or a hug or a smile means a lot to them. And lastly, I just wanted to mention I believe the three of us were at the Kettering Health Network groundbreaking today. It was a great event. Thank them for their investment in the community, and looking forward to them being open next year. That's all I have.
Ms. Bronson?
I also give my condolences to the Armbrusters. Also, I don't know if I mentioned it before, to the Bober family, and I don't think I realized that she lost her son, her second son, in a year's time. Judy Bober did. So I give my condolences to both of those families. And I concur with Councilman Moon. The NAACP banquet was great. I did post some pictures on Facebook and had to look to see if they really went on there. There were about 190 pictures or so. And so I congratulate the scholarship winners, the book scholarship winner, and our children who are in the school district for the Middletown City Schools. They complete the poster and essay contest. So they did really well, and I'm really proud of those children who did participate. Voting is today. If you haven't voted, you have until 7:30 p.m. And that would be a great thing for you to exercise your rights to vote. And I think I had one more thing. The Symphony's final concert is Sunday at 2:30 at the Finkelman. And there's another organization, the Southwestern Ohio Philharmonic, who is starting up. I happen to be on their board, and they want to make sure that they have music in the city of Middletown. And most of them are the artists who are already performing, so there won't be any new people. It's the same group of people who wish to continue that kind of music. So I think that concludes my
All right,
announcement.
very good. Thank you. I'd like to compliment Mr. Adkins and the staff on the housing presentation. I think that's going to be very thought-provoking and very informative. I know it's been a long time in the making, but very well thought out and well done. The Kettering Medical Center, as Mr. Moon mentioned, was an exciting day. I know there was a lot of angst and anticipation when the Rayton Inn was being torn down as to what may end up being at that site. And I was certainly relieved when I had a chance to meet with Kettering and hear their plans. And they again expressed that today, their commitment to the community, commitment to healthcare, and a real partner. And I think it'll complement what we've got out there with Atrium, with AK's Research Center, out to the Bender Tract and the Paychecks building. So I think having that activity will certainly help, and you won't be able to miss that construction site right off I-75 like the AK site. So should show that Middletown's on the move and hopefully begin to attract some additional development. And again, my sympathies to the Armbruster family. I was shocked and saddened when I heard the news. Just never know. So it's certainly Trace we missed, as Mr. Picard said, throughout the community, missed by many. And with that, Ms. Brutland, we can move to our 2 items of legislation for this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. There are 2 items of legislation on tonight's agenda, both of which are emergency. We'll need a motion to waive the charter provision requiring 2 separate readings as to the following ordinances. Ordinance number O-2017-19 and ordinance number O-2017-20.
I make a motion to waive the charter that requires reading on 2 separate days and declare that ordinance O-2017-19 and ordinance 2017-20 be declared emergency measures to be read one time only.
Do we have a second?
Second?
All right, Mr. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Picard?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Bronston?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2017-19, an ordinance authorizing a contract with Adleta Construction to repair concrete as part of the 2017 sidewalk, curb, and gutter program and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, I know we had a couple presentations on this. Any other discussion or comments? All right, Mr. Ray, would you call the roll, please?
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Oh, Mr. Bohannon did.
Thank you. Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Picard?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Bronston?
Yes.
Ordinance number O-2017-20, an ordinance authorizing a contract for airport resurfacing with John R. Jurgensen Co. and declaring an emergency.
All right, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Second. Okay. Mr. Atkins, any updates on the airport repaving?
No, Your Honor, this is for the taxiways and aprons at the airport. ODOT has given us a grant to do that. It has been bid out, and John R. Jurgensen provided the lowest and best bid. This would normally be a motion item, but given the fact it's almost $1 million contract, we went ahead and drafted legislation for it, and we are asking for emergency to allow the project to get started in the spring.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Mrs. Ray, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Picard?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Ms. Bronston?
Yes.
All right. That concludes our legislation for this evening. Our next meeting will be May 16th in these chambers. Thank you all, and I'd like to wish all the mothers a happy and safe Mother's Day, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Quickly.
That's good. 4 weeks again.
That's all right.
Yeah, we can tell you good job.
All right. See you tomorrow. I'll be down there. I'll be bug-eyed, so don't make fun of me. I'm going to the eye doctor.